let's continue with the last chapter of this exciting series of marketing session. Uh, Chapter 10, which talks about crafting brand positioning. In the earlier chapter, we talked about and we acknowledged and we understood the importance of brand equity and how should you create and measure and monitor brand equity. In this chapter, we talked about crafting, not formulating, but developing brand positioning. And what do you mean by brand positioning? Brand positioning means brand image, building your brand image, building the tagline, building the message that you wish to build so that your end users, so that your target segments are aware of it exactly in the manner in which you want them to be aware of you and your brand, in short. An extremely challenging task. That's where you take the help of the advertising and the media industry to be able to promote your brand amongst your identified target segments. So let's look at marketing strategy in terms of when you are doing anything and everything with regards to brand positioning. You must focus on segmentation. We have seen segmentation. Segmentation is nothing else but identifying parameters on which you want to break the market into a homogeneous market. The STP model or the STP philosophy is what we encourage when you are putting a strategy in place, and that is with regards to segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So segmentation is how you are going to reach out to the segments of interest in terms of behavioral segmentation, in terms of demographic segmentation, in terms of psychographic segmentation. Targeting is who are you targeting in terms of identifying the target audience by demographically defining them, and positioning obviously is how are you going to reach out to them in terms of what you intend to communicate to this target audience or this group of people. In short, therefore, what is positioning? Positioning has a definition, and that is the act of designing a company's offering and image. Why? To occupy a memorable, a distinct place in the minds of the consumer or the target audience or the target segment. So when you think of a brand, you think of a brand in terms of what it is trying to communicate, and either you are fondly remembering it, or you are not remembering it, or you are remembering it with a disadvantage. Depends on how you want to remember it. Brand positioning. Now, in this particular case, the quadrant shows you on the slide about quality and price. Those are the two key attributes of the brand. And you are focusing on brand A. Now, brand A, consumer wants and needs company capabilities and competitive action. So, brand A in that case is seen as a competitively priced brand, but at the same time seen as a high quality brand, and therefore is strong on positioning as compared to the other brands in the brand positioning grid that you see here. Uh, Value proposition. Now, we've again touched upon this concept of value proposition. And what is value proposition? Value proposition is the value that the brand is able to create in the minds of the consumer, which means the consumer is believing that this is worth its price, that the price is worth, that the value of the product or service is worth it. And that's the value proposition, which is what the brand is and what the brand could be. There's a balance between both of them, and that value is what is seen by the consumer. Uh, some examples of let's take Domino's as an example in this case, which talks about its targeting customers who are convenience minded pizza lovers. The key benefit that it offers is obviously the pace or the speed at which it is able to deliver good quality pizza. In terms of price premium, it is able to command a 15% price premium. Value proposition It says, a good hot pizza delivered promptly at your door at a competitive or a moderate price. And that's what it's trying to say. You as a consumer, are you seeing this value proposition or not? If you are seeing it, you are willing to pay the price. If you're not seeing it, then I'm sorry, you are not going to pay that price, and you're going to go against the brand and probably move on to a competition brand. So, brand positioning starts with a frame of reference. What is it that I am trying to communicate for my brand? What difference am I going to bring in the brand? And then the brand mantra in terms of what is the USP of my brand and how am I going to reach out to my target audience. And all these three put together help you define or put together the brand positioning. So the frame of reference is, you will never look at your brand in isolation. You will always look at your brand in relation to competition. So all brands are good, but you are better than competition. All brands are bad, but you are worse to competition, and therefore the relevance always has got to be with competition. Hence, you need to identify, if you were to make this reference or you were to make a relative comparison, you have to identify your brand in relation to competition. You need to identify, pinpoint, define who is my competition so that I can put my frame of reference yardstick parameters in implementing the frame of reference framework for that matter. What points am I similar to competition? What points am I different from competition? And I think the focus needs to be not on whether I'm similar, but the focus needs to be in what ways am I different from competition, to build that differentiation, to build what I'm different about. If IKEA is saying no questions asked, you can return the products after a month, I think that's a point of difference compared to the other home furnishing stores in this country. And that's a point of difference that can be the USP of the brand. Uh, Shampoo brands, I think, dandruff shampoo brands are saying return, money back, no questions asked. Either we, I mean, if we are saying dandruff out in 7 days, then the claim to fame is dandruff out in 7 days, otherwise, there are no questions asked. And that therefore becomes a differentiator for the brand compared to competition. uh, Choosing point of purchase and point of differentiation, what are therefore my putting 1 and 2 into account, which is comparing to competition and points of difference, helps you put together the benefits of your brand, and these benefits of your brand will help you to put together what you are going to choose for your brand compared to competition, and or rather over competition. Again, a hypothetical perception map here trying to show the image of the brand, which is either it is contemporary or traditional, and the flavor is strong or light. You have brands A, B, C, D, you have customer segments 1, 2, and 3. So, brand B, for example, has a contemporary brand image and has a strong flavor, especially amongst segment 1. Among segment 2, brand A has a contemporary image but just above the border in terms of average, in terms of neither a strong flavor nor a light flavor. Traditional image more or less for brand C, but no particular segment across segments, and brand D. So it basically tries to see, now if brand B were to have this image across all segments, then I would say it's not leading to that, because brand B is having this image only for segment 1. That's how I'm going to read the perceptual map, as what I am going to be reading for the other brands. When reading a perceptual map, it's important to understand who is the brand targeting. And who is the brand targeting is important, because then you will know whether the brand is in line with its target market or it is not in line with its brand perception target or target market, what it is envisaged to do. Possible repositioning based on whatever you had seen and done for the brand could be, for example, in this case, you have brand A being repositioned to A flavor because it should be seen as a light flavored brand, especially amongst segment 2. Currently, it was being seen as more of a contemporary brand with no flavor. And that's what you want to position it as, a contemporary brand more and more of a light flavor, which goes into your communication yardstick for the brand. And that is a task for brand A if it wants to be seen as follows. Brand mantras are, for Nike, for example, it says authentic athletic performance. For Disney, it says fun family entertainment. Your brand mantra criteria should be, it should be able to simplify, it should be able to inspire, and it should be able to communicate what it is intended to communicate. Extremely essential, extremely important. As again, to reiterate, when you are checking or you're measuring or you're monitoring your brand performance, you need to first look at the brand strategy. You need to first look at the brand blueprint, understanding what is it that the brand is trying to communicate. A straightaway example is, instead of asking what is the brand trying to communicate, you can straightaway ask whether the brand is communicate its tagline. Don't leave home without it is the tagline for American Express. Instead of asking what is American Express trying to communicate, you can straightaway say, does American Express communicate this? Yeah. And that's what helps you understand the brand positioning and a brand uh, establishing a brand, ensuring that the brand is communicating what it is intended to communicate. Brand positioning, the bullseye here in this particular example, what we see is that at the outermost aspect, you have the values, the brand personality. In this particular case, they are contemporary, thoughtful, and all of these colors, caring, all of this goes in the outermost periphery of the brand. You have the substantiators in the second periphery, points of parity, which means you're similar to competition on these aspects, you're different from competition on these aspects, and then your brand mantra, which is your core, more so as your USP, to be able to understand and communicate what you intend to communicate. And if you do it for Starbucks, for example, the key consumer takeaway for Starbucks is Starbucks gives me the richest possible sensory experience for drinking coffee. That's not the outermost periphery with what my consumer is going to take away. What my consumer is targeting is a coffee drink. What my consumer is, I'm getting from my consumers is coffee, and drinking experience is often unsatisfying, and I need to marry that experience. Desire for coffee better than consumption experience is my need state. Competitive. So all these are going into my other periphery to be able to offer my core brand mantra, which is rich, rewarding coffee experience. When again wanting to talk about it, which is you are going to look at a competitive advantage. In this particular case, both are playing basketball, but you have a person who is taller than the other person and therefore assumed to play better than the other person. So both are playing, one plays better. Both are playing, one plays poorer. And that's the relative advantage that you want to make when you're comparing your brand to competition, to be able to understand what is unique about my brand, and therefore what are the differentiated strategies that I'm communicating about my brand. Means of differentiation, you can various channels of differentiation, various reputation, image, services, employees, they're all different to different people, and that's important to understand as far as differentiation goes. Emotional branding. Let me ask you a question before we move forward. Most branding is appealing on the emotional levels or is appealing at the functional level or rational level? Interestingly, all brands are appealing to you at an emotional level and not at a functional or rational level. Brands like insurance also appeal to you at an emotional level. Brands like photocopying are also appealing to you at an emotional level rather than a rational level. And therefore, you must all understand what is it that your brand is trying to communicate, and what message is it giving you, a rational functional message versus an emotional message. There are some alternative positioning approaches, which is what story, what brand narratives is your brand trying to tell you, and that brand story is nothing else but your brand communication messages that you have focused on to for your brand. Brand journalism and cultural branding, which is cultural adaptation to the brand so as to appeal to the wide generation or the wide mix of people or the diverse mix of people you're trying to appeal to. Brand journalism is basically all fiction about brand facts, about what good your brand has achieved over the years, what good your brand has done. A bit of corporate social responsibility would also come into this aspect of branding. If you're a small business, like long businesses, you must also keep on communicating or keep on uh, building your associations, not through primary awareness measures, but through secondary association channels also. uh, you cannot not do research. You must do low cost research to be able to bring in that buzz in the community, bring in that affinity with your consumers. So whether your business is long or small or established or new, you must position your product or service in your target audience mind, and this product or service must talk about unique differentiation. And that remains quite a challenge. Most organizations have in-house corporate communications department to help you with this, and in some cases the organizations are different, and you can employ or you can use the services of a third party to be able to meet the requirements of branding. Extremely exciting a field, yet at the same time extremely complex. If you get the brand right, you can get many aspects right, and it typically works in tandem with the other functions of marketing. But the key function of marketing here, your plan, your strategy has to be on the brand, and therefore everything that you do in marketing ultimately is to build in the brand equity that you need to build in. There is a component of digital marketing also, and this digital marketing is a new promotion aspect that has come into the marketplace with bespoke advertising, with customized advertising, as we've spoken about in the promotion aspect. Now, when you're building your brand, there are four key things that you must understand as far as the product is concerned. Whether you want to use the mother brand in your product strategy, or you want to use a distinct brand to build your strategy. In terms of pricing, what should be the brand pricing strategy? Is it going to be competitive, which means exactly like competition? Is it going to be lower than competition, that is penetrative? Or is it going to be skimming, which means above competition, or that is a price level higher than competition? In terms of packaging, are you going to be using sustainable packaging materials, or are going to be using innovative packaging materials? That is what you want to use for your product or your brand. Uh, Promotion typically has two strategies: the push strategy and the pull strategy. The push strategy is the manufacturer pushing the brand to the consumer, and the pull strategy is the consumer demanding the brand demanding the brand, saying, I want this brand only. The place strategy is, are you going to directly reach out to your consumer, or are you going to reach out through a consumer through intermediaries, and these intermediaries are your representatives, or they are your retail channels, or they are your wholesale channels? How are you going to reach out to your consumers? Having said that, so when you're building a resume for your brand, you must build it based on product. What are the differentiation for the product, and therefore what is the brand's current state, something called as a product life cycle. Whether you're in the introductory stage, whether you're in the growth stage, whether you're in the maturity stage, or whether you're in the decline stage, as a good, reputed, credible brand manager, you should not let your brand move in the decline stage. Because if you let your brand move in the decline stage, you are seen as being myopic, and you do not want to be a marketing myopic manager. So, product strategy: what is the USP, or what is the differentiation of your product compared to competition? Pricing strategy, whether it is penetrative, skimming, or competitive. Promotion strategy, whether it is pull strategy or push strategy. Place strategy, what is, so you, are you going to be directly reaching out to your customers or consumers, or going to be reaching out to them through intermediaries or channels, and how are you going to work with them to reach out to your customers? These are the 4 or 5 aspects that you need to put together in your strategy for your brands, to be able to understand what is the plan, what is the objective, and how best can I achieve this. It is also referred to as a resume or a marketing resume for your brand, which entitles the description of the marketing mix. So friends, what we have covered today is quite a lot in terms of marketing. We started with marketing 101, talking about what is marketing, basics of marketing, challenges of marketing, role of marketing, moving on to marketing plan and strategy, moving on to understanding the external environment in terms of macroeconomic environment, understanding SWOT, understanding what does it take to build a strategy, understanding PESTLE. When you build a strategy, you don't only plan and implement, but you also control and set up metrics to be able to understand whether you have achieved what you intended to achieve or not. And finally, we moved on to gathering information from the customer, which is market research, and from the market, which is market intelligence. The next section, what we covered after that, was on branding, how to build brand equity, what is brand equity, what should be the strategy on building the brand equity in terms of the marketing mix, which is product, place, price, promotion. And nothing has to be done in isolation, it has to be done in comparison with competition, in comparison to what the brand is intended to communicate. Uh, Hope it is going to be useful, especially when you go back to your organizations and apply these concepts to your organizations, to be able to deliver a value-based organization, to be able to deliver a superior value to your consumers or customers. Uh, Please refer to this session on a regular basis. Once you go back to your organization, refer to the textbook of Philip Kotler, and I'm sure you will be able to achieve marketing objectives or marketing success in your respective organizations, and climb up the ladder as fast and as efficiently as one would expect you to do so. So good luck.